Okay, so I've got my perspective view set up for rendering, but now I want to set up a 3D section and then also set up one that will work for a rendered section. So it's also a good chance just to go over these basic drawing types. So you can see there we've got these two main types. We've got perspective views, which we've been looking at, and essentially what we've got in Revit Open there at the moment is pretty much a one-point perspective. And then I'm going to go to the default 3D views that I've already created on the left with that 3D view there named 3D in the funny curly brackets that you get by clicking on the house button, of course, up the top. And then I'm going to duplicate that view. Now, sorry, Revit is just freezing. Let's try again. Yep, right click and then duplicate, and then I'll choose duplicate again. We don't need to do it with detailing here. And then I'm going to right click on my new view name and choose rename and call it 3D section. So then I'm just going to quickly look at the angle of this view so that it's clear it is both an axonometric and an isometric. So it's an axonometric because it has a vertical axis, and that's the case with all views that you create in this way in Revit. They always have a vertical axis if they're not perspective views. And then if I click on the corner of the cube, that makes it an isometric because the angles then inside each corner of the cube are equal. So I'll then hide the things I don't want just by selecting one of those levels. I'm going to right click and just hide in view category to hide all the levels. I also don't really want to see this floor that's off to the side, so I'm going to just select that and right click and then hide in view elements so that I don't hide all of my floors. And then I'm going to go over to properties and make sure it says 3D view at the top, so I know I'm working with the view properties. And then just scroll down and tick section box, and you'll see that the box comes up around what I can see there, and I'm going to select that and then simply use the arrow there to drag back into my model and cut away the parts that I don't want to see. So there we are, and maybe I'll take it back a bit further. There we are. So the problem now is that my ceiling is blocking the things underneath. So I've got two options for cutting that away. I can either use the section box by selecting it. I can drag the top part down, and that actually works fairly well in this case. The other option though would be to simply hide the ceiling by selecting it. We can right click and hide in view category and just hide all the ceilings that way. And I might do that with my little lighting fixture there as well. I'm just going to hide the element for that one. And, oh no, sorry, I'll and also hide the lights, and I'll hide the category for those. So that's how I want the view to be, and that's going to give me a fairly good cutaway section. And we can even just go to realistic there to get an idea how it's going to render. And I might then select my section box and hide it as well. So again, you can always hide the section box in the same way as other things, hide in view elements or category, makes no difference really. And there we are. So that's giving me a cutaway section. But then often you'll do this so that you can render a section. So I'm going to set this, instead of being an axonometric view, instead of being an isometric view at least, I'm going to click on the front option there on the cube to rotate it around. So I'm doing it at the same angle as my other section. Right, but now the reason I'm doing this is because I can't render that section. The rendering option isn't available for views like this. See, it's greyed out. Rendering cloud does come up, so I'm going to test that. I've never actually tested that before. Normally to do this I'd be in 3ds Max anyway, but let's see. So I'll send that off. It may work. It's going to be interesting if it does. So I'll just send that off. and let's see what happens there. But while that's happening, I'm going to go back to my 3D section view. And so now, I do want to see those ceilings. So I'm just going to click on the light bulb there to bring them back. And then I can progressively go through and unhide those things that I hid earlier. And I want those things because they're going to give me the lighting apart from anything else. And so now you can see that we've got the teapot there, or on the view tab we can go to render there as well. So I'm going to set the lighting to interior artificial only and just hit render. And a really nice technique you can use with this approach to rendering is to also take that original section with the Linework and then overlay that on top of this rendered version in Photoshop. So then you get the lines and the rendering together. And maybe I'll show you that. That's quite an easy thing to do. So I'll just first adjust the exposure here. So using the exposure value, I can just make that brighter. I probably need a few more lights really to get a good result here, but I'll just do it with what I've got. That's not too bad, but it could definitely be better. And I'll just do it like that for now. Okay, so then I'm going to export and save that somewhere. Where's my Photoshop there? Okay, so that's now saved as a JPEG. Yep, it's a JPEG. And then I'm going to go to my section view and just clean that up a little bit. So I'll hide the crop region, I'll bring the crop region back first actually and crop my view by dragging, of course, and bring that down to just cut away things I don't want to see. I'll hide the reference planes just so they don't get in the way when I'm printing, and that should do. So now I'll hide my crop region and that's ready to go. So I'm going to then just go and choose print on the file menu. So it's really important here, don't use export. It's much better to use print. And then I'll choose the Adobe PDF printer to create a PDF file. Make sure it's on current window. Go to setup. Always force yourself, you've got to go to setup every time you make a print in Revit just to check this option. Make sure it's got zoom 100%, not fit to page. And I'm just going to have to use some trial and error to get my page size. So 1 to 50 should fit on A3. And I'm going to set this back to center. When you choose that zoom 100%, it changes it. So you've got to just choose that again if you want center. So, not quite. Okay, so I'm going to go back to click print up there. And then I can go to setup and try a bigger page. I'm going to go to A2 if it's 1 to 50. And then it will fit. Oh yes, of course, yeah. Okay, so now I'll make my PDF just by clicking OK. And then make sure I know where I'm saving this file. Okay, so there we are, so that's worked. And so now I'll just open up Photoshop. while that's happening, I might just see how the cloud version was going. Oh, Edge. It might work. I'll see. You all know they're replacing Edge with Chrome, or they're going to bake Chrome into Edge. So the new version of Edge will be Chrome, pretty much, or will use the Chrome technology, which is interesting. Tells you something about what's happening with Microsoft. It's not because their technology was bad, actually. It's because the new people running Microsoft are Google fanboys, apart from anything else. But still, Edge is pretty terrible, I've got to say, at the moment. So it will be a good thing when it turns over to Chrome. Don't know why they couldn't have just fixed IE though. Anyhow, let's just see. Okay, so that's still chugging away, so I won't wait for that. And by now, Photoshop should have opened up, and we'll go and open those files. So, back to here. And so I've got the PDF file there, and I'm just going to hold down Control and open the one below, which is my 3D section. So those two different files. Okay, so when I open the PDF file, it's going to ask me for the resolution. And watch out for this one, because I've noticed, especially if you use SketchUp a lot of people have had issues at this point and thought there was a problem with SketchUp. And it's not SketchUp, it's Photoshop. And you'll know what I mean. If you try to make plans and other things from SketchUp, and they don't seem to be high quality when you go and then work on them in Photoshop afterwards, it's not because of the way they're coming out of SketchUp, it's because of this setting here. You've got to check that the resolution is high enough. So always keep an eye on that. So you want this to be 300 whenever you open a PDF or any other format that asks you for the resolution. At least make sure it's 300 as a minimum. So there, check that, 300 DPI, or 300 pixels per inch. So there we are. So there's my section with the Linework. There's my section with the rendering. So I'm just going to select all from the menu there in my rendered version. I'm then going to go to my version with the PDF file, and then just go to, oh sorry, I forgot a step. So back to the one with the rendering. So I forgot to copy that. So on the edit menu, I'll just use copy, Control C, same thing. And then in my file with the Linework, go to edit and paste, and you can see that the layer there has gone on top of my original layer. So I'm simply going to drag that new layer, layer 2, underneath layer 1. Oh, now one thing I've missed. Notice how it's also black and white. Yeah, I forgot to check the mode. And that's another thing to check. So it's telling everyone to check things, and I forgot to check the obvious thing. So I'll show you how to fix that, but then I'll show you what you should be checking to start with. So I'm going to just delete this layer, because I'd have to set the mode first. So you can fix it after you've brought it in if you go to the mode menu, and you can change it from grayscale to RGB colour. Don't be tempted to use CMYK. RGB is better for now. So that works to fix it, but I'll show you the better option. I'm just going to close this file, and I'm going to say no, I don't want to save changes. And then I'll go back to open, and I'm going to open it again. And this time, I'll follow my own advice and change the mode there to RGB colour as well. That's the other thing you should check. I always forget that. So 300 DPI again, but don't forget the mode underneath that. Change to RGB colour. There we go. It won't make any difference to the way the lines work here, because they're all black and white anyway. But now, if I go and again make sure this is copied to the clipboard, I'm sure it still would be, but just to double check. Now back to here, we'll go edit, paste, and now it's coloured. So again, I'll drag layer 2 underneath layer 1 now, and then, oops, try it again. Okay, and so then Control-T, or go to the Edit menu and just choose Free Transform. Hold down Shift, and you can stretch from the corners and keep it all nicely in proportion. Okay, so you can see there, I'm just lining this up by eye. You can do it mathematically to make it line up perfectly, but I'm not going to worry about that. I can do it by eye. So there you can see I'm lining up the columns, is what I'm looking at, to see that they line up with the lines that I've got. And I'll try and make it as good as I can, but I'm not going to probably make it perfect. I'm just going to nudge that up using the arrow keys as well. It's not quite on, it's a little bit out still, so I'll just stretch it a bit more. So it's just been touchy. There we are. Just a touch more. Close enough for now. I'd spend more time on it normally and get it perfect, but that's still pretty close. And you can see if I zoom in, yeah, it's still a tiny bit off, but I don't want to spend too much time on this, so I'll just maybe nudge that with the arrow keys on the keyboard. That might do me for now. But you can definitely make that perfect if you spend a bit more time on it. See the columns, they're not too bad. Yeah. Okay, so that can just make it a bit clearer to have the line work over the top of the render. So you probably crop this or do something to clean up the sides. So with the cropping tool though on the left there, I can just maybe bring that in and cut away all of that and get a really nice section without any text or anything on the sides. And there you have it. So that's a way of getting a mix of the line work and the sections. And maybe just to finish off there, I'll go and adjust the render layer. So what I always like to do there is just drag the that layer onto the new button to make a copy of it. I'll turn the background off, but I've got it there if I need to go back to it. And so then I'm going to just adjust the current layer, maybe just using levels there, and we can you know, get that to be a bit lighter. There we are. So that's a really nice technique, mixing the line work and the rendering, if you want to. And you can of course do the same thing with plans if you want to plan. Maybe just very quickly to show you that. So if you get a plan view, I'm just going to orbit so that you can see my 3D view at an angle, and I'll unhide my section box so that you can see it, and I can drag that and then use that top of the section box to cut away the top part of my model. Go to a top view, and I'll have to rotate it to the right angle. Oh, that's upside down. Oops. Wait. Okay, so then I could render that view as well, and then overlay that with the line work from my floor plan. So that might give you some ideas. That's a really nice presentation technique. You can try. So is that everything you were interested in? Yep, sure.